New unlikely alliances are forged while the Marines are finally on their way, but does any of what's going on actually make any logical sense? It's time to talk about the For All Mankind episode, Brave New World.
Spoiler alert! Shields up!
We start with a news broadcast of Kelly dedicating her landing to her dad and all of humanity, saying the words that were on the plaque Ed had kept with him all his life. We come in peace for all mankind.
Nice touch.
Nice indeed. However, Kelly said this plaque was the one from Apollo 11, but Apollo 11 did land on the moon just like it did in our reality. Ed was the commander of Apollo 10, the mission that could have landed but chose not to, thereby losing the race to the Ruskies in their reality. So, wouldn't Ed have kept his plaque rather than the one from Apollo 11, which should really still be on the moon?
Whoops.
Whoopsie indeed.
Good point, Dog. Might well be a little hiccup with the script there. But no one on Mars noticed, and everyone there is delighted.
So much so, half of the people who signed the petition to leave changed their minds and decided to stay. Considering they only have 2 weeks of food left, that's not the feel-good news this is supposed to be.
And Geraldo thanks Dale for the news.
He had nothing to do with it, mind.
Well, that's what he said, although it was his decision to broadcast the landing to the whole base, and everyone sees him as some kind of inspiring leader.
The writers have been hinting at his downfall because he talked on the torture since the start of this season. They're really milking this potential for all it's worth, even though any civilian would have done the same and likely would have cracked much sooner than he did, let me remind you.
It's like a sword of Damocles above his head.
This leads Ilya to urge him to talk to someone he won't want to listen to, but he must.
Who? Who?
Irina. She tells Miles once President Kozhenko is deposed, the M6 alliance will dissolve, and the new Soviet government will be more amenable to strike a deal with the Martians. All they have to do is hold on for a few more weeks.
It's amazing how much Irina knows while being a prisoner, way beyond what her captors do.
Not only that, but she and Polivanov also know that an international strike force is on its way to Mars to retake the Iridium asteroid. Well, at least the Marines will finally have something to do.
Amazing the Yanks and Ruskies waited 6 months before sending the troops.
Even more amazing, Mars didn't see them coming when they've been on approach all that time. Shouldn't Alida and the command center have noticed a blip getting stronger for weeks?
You'd think.
And of course, Danny's kid is there, but it seems Haskell isn't.
Weird from a writing point of view, but it makes a heck of a lot more sense. You can't send a guy into battle who may have divided loyalties.
So their plan is to take control of the asteroid by force.
So Dale heads to talk to Alida about the coming invasion, but she doesn't believe him, as they can't see anything on their monitoring screens.
Until she does a little bit of gobbledygook, and bam! One stealthy inbound invasion on the radar 3 days away.
How about that? Meanwhile, Boyd has become the leader of a new team, the Happy Valley Corps, whose aim is to patrol and secure the station while leading with kindness.
And Alex is part of that team.
But what about Dev and the Peacekeepers? They just destroyed their food and killed at least one of them. Any repercussions?
None. At least, not yet. First, we must check in on Lilith, who's watching the student film her friend had started to edit before the dome cracked and killed her.
She blames herself for her death.
I don't want to be that guy, but she is kinda right.
Whether it's right or not, that's not really the thing you say to make her feel better, McCluck.
Well, luckily, Alex doesn't say that.
What a relief. He's more sensitive and sensible than, our engineer.
Hey!
Come on. You know it's true.
I actually take pride in that.
Well, Lilith decides she wants to do something about how Earth sees Mars and what's going on there.
Especially after the news calls her friend an insurgent, when all she did when she died was dance.
I bet she's gonna finish the film her friend was making, and it'll make a huge difference and become a symbol of truth for their struggle.
You're getting a tad ahead of the story there, Gigi. So, the group in charge of Happy Valley are discussing their options. With an invading force on the way, they're wondering what's left open to them.
Not much.
Well, there is one, as Lee suggests. Destroy the docking platform on the asteroid to prevent the Marines from landing there and taking it over.
Problem is, there's no explosive powerful enough to do this on Mars.
That's right. Primal used the last of the explosive to destroy the domes, which reminds me, what the hell's going on with that faction?
Well, hopefully we'll find out soon enough. But right now, though, it seems we're going to be focusing on Dale's plan to create a bomb made of fertilizer and a few other ingredients to do the job.
It's a bold strategy. Let's see if it works out for them. Meanwhile, back on the Marine ship, we see every training. And Haskell's there too. So much for being sensible and not sending a Marine with potential conflicting allegiances.
And that conflict is made even clearer when he talks to Avery about Gully, the girl who died, and the fact that him, her, Lilith, and Alex spent all their time together. Sending him over to fight against Mars makes zero sense. He's a complete liability. While they do seem to need him for intelligence and what he knows about the asteroid they're planning on taking, well, they could have got that intel from him back on Earth. Plus, such intel could be considered dubious considering he comes from Mars himself.
Well, in any case, Palmer confirms everything he tells his superior about the asteroid.
Well, since Palmer's there on FaceTime confirming everything, why did they need Haskell's version of things? Maybe to give the actors something to do?
Well, in any case, it's time to check in on Titan, and we learn that they landed 20 clicks away from where they needed to be to locate the source of that tantalizingly incomplete data that might show proof of extraterrestrial life.
You'd think if life were there, it would be in more places than a single one.
Be that as it may, they need to find a way to reach that specific site.
Oh, can't they take off and land again?
I think they don't have enough fuel for that. From what I understand, the plan was for them to manufacture more once they landed using resources from Titan itself.
But be that as it may, Kelly suggests only having a team of 3 in the rover instead of 4 to increase the oxygen the remaining crew will have, which should be enough to make it there.
Yeah, but that's a command decision. And Walt's just been obsessing about how he messed up with the burn program, which meant they landed instead of going back.
He's really distraught about it, so Kelly's about to tell him it's all her doing.
Until he temporarily gives her command. Well, until he can figure out what happened with the burn and get his head right. And she accepts?
It's kind of what she wanted.
And you think he won't eventually figure out what happened?
Oh, I'm sure he will in time. But we have to create tension on Titan somehow, so we'll have that and the perilous journey to the tantalizing site.
Back on Mars, Elena, Irina, and Polivanov are all astounded by the Martians' decision to take a hopper filled with explosives and blow up the asteroid's landing pad right in the middle of a massive dust storm. Because of course there had to be a dust storm suddenly.
Well, that's the plan, and they have to launch now before the Marines get there.
So Boyd decides to pilot the hopper herself as she has no family, so she's more expendable than the other pilots. She has piloting experience?
I guess she must do.
And Polivanov volunteers too. Why him? He's got a family, so why do this? Especially when 2 other pilots are already volunteered for the mission before Boyd took over.
My guess is because he's a featured character and the other 2, well, we don't even know who they are or we never saw them, so there would be less tension for the audience if it was them.
So it'll mean more to the audience when he sacrifices himself or something.
That's probably the plan, yes.
Meanwhile, back on the Marine ship, Avery's doubting herself.
Because of her daddy issues?
That's another Marine who shouldn't be going to Mars. Yeah, but her sergeant gives her a pep talk, so it's all fine.
While on Titan, Kelly orders Walt to be on the rover mission with them.
To make him feel better?
Probably.
They're really dragging on that search for extraterrestrial life, aren't they?
They've been dragging it since season 3, so what's a couple more episodes, eh? And in any case, that's really just a side note before we head back to Mars as we catch up with Lilith interviewing a Marzi singing his latest song.
Told you she was gonna finish Gunny's movie?
Yep, and on the hopper, they're loading all the very delicate explosives.
It's gonna be one hell of a ride through that sandstorm.
And a hell of a ride it was, but they make it through and head to the asteroid.
Except they're too late, as some Marines are already on the asteroid.
Including Avery and Haskell.
So, you're telling me neither Boyd nor Polivanov saw their shuttle on the landing platform?
Maybe their shuttle dropped the Marines off and blasted away.
Well, hang on. Weren't they tasked with taking over the asteroid? How could they do that with no backup? The Marine shuttle's got to be on a landing pad somewhere, right?
By my understanding, there's only one landing pad for the hopper and one for the departing hopper, which Boyd and Polivanov will take before their hopper explodes.
So, how did they land? Where's their ship? How could Boyd and Polivanov not see it on their descent?
Well, they might not have seen the Marines, but the Marines sure have noticed a new hopper on the landing pad, which they're going to check out. But the timer's already on!
Well, this is gonna get messy.
So, 2 of the Marines get to the hopper and notice the timer and all the explosives.
So they switch it off?
Oh, no, they order the other 2 to evacuate ASAP.
There's no off button?
Well, would you trust a bomb you don't know to be easily defused?
Probably not. I'm guessing none of the Marines on the asteroid are demolitions experts anyway.
And 4 minutes left is hardly any time to contact their main ship and request instructions.
So it's tense. Boyd and Polivanov notice lights in their rigged hopper,
but wisely get the hell out of Dodge, but not before warning any Marines that might be there.
Avery and her sergeant get as far away as they can before the explosion.
Although, you've got to wonder why they're doing this outside of the station and not run through the corridors inside the base.
Plus, they had time to get their helmet and gear and everything.
So the hopper and the landing pad explode. And thankfully, Avery survives. But her sergeant doesn't.
Well, that's bound to tip her over the edge.
And that's where we leave the episode.
So, how come Irina and Polivanov stopped being prisoners and started working with the Martians?
They saw which side their bread was buttered?
It's a bit of a leap, though, don't you think?
I agree that it's a leap, but I guess the prospect of regime change in Russia, with Polivanov being touted as the possible new leader, helped them switch sides.
And how did the desire for them to talk to Delco from Ilya? I mean, what's his connection with all this?
He's, Russian? Plus he used to deal in contraband, so maybe he has connections.
Well, still, as a prisoner, you talk to a guard or something, not a bartender you should have zero contact with.
It makes as much sense as us not seeing anything from Dev, Palmer and his team. Surely we should have focused some time on them since they successfully destroyed the food domes and killed Gully.
You want to see more of the guy whose motivations change more often than he changes underwear?
Yeah, maybe it's for the best.
And what about Avery and Haskell being sent to a mission to retake Mars?
Well, that's not a surprise story-wise.
Oh, it isn't, I'll grant you that, but it's a terrible decision. Didn't they have other Marines to send instead?
For the purposes of the story? No.
I myself did like the fact that Lilith was going to finish Gutty's movies project and show a different side of Mars and Happy Valley to Earth.
Don't get me wrong, that's gonna be nice, and I bet it'll be instrumental as we gear up for the finale, but shouldn't Earth just see it as a propaganda piece?
I'm sure they will, or at least they should, but that's for another episode. I'm more worried about the dwindling food supply and the fact that the successful Titan landing means that over half of those who've chosen to leave have changed their minds. How's that gonna help them survive?
It's patriotism, Doc.
You can't eat patriotism, Commander.
And you've got to laugh at the convenience that no one noticed the incoming Marine ship.
Stealth technology?
It's a giant ship with rotating sections to simulate gravity, Commander. It's not a B-2 stealth bomber.
Well, we wouldn't have this story if they had weeks to notice its approach, McCluck.
And that's kind of my point.
Well, I appreciated that the Marine ship had artificial gravity, unlike the Sojourner.
All of these problems felt pretty artificial when you think about it. Like, how come neither Boyd nor Polivanov noticed another ship when they landed on the asteroid? Where did it land? And if it landed elsewhere, doesn't that make a mockery of the mission to blow up the landing platform?
And if their plan was to take over the asteroid, knowing that there should at least be 80 personnel on board according to both Haskell and Palmer, why only assign 4 Marines to the mission? That's a high risk of failure right there. You think you need at least a dozen soldiers just to be safe. I mean, this is the Marines' primary mission, right?
If you look back to the episode No Sudden Moves, where these very same Marines were on a training exercise whose purpose was to simulate an infraction just like this one, they had 7 Marines working together.
Well, that makes even less sense. Where's their ship? Where's the rest of their team?
And why didn't the Marines suspect something was off when they got to the asteroid and there was absolutely no one on the station? Then they find it odd, no little gut feeling that something was wrong, that they might be walking into a trap, maybe?
Maybe those Marines weren't the best of the best.
And don't get me started with Kelly and Walt. I mean, landing just a little too far is one thing, and I'm fine with that, but just dangling Walt's stress over his failed return burn and Kelly's increasing guilt over what she did, it's bound to get revealed in the worst possible way.
And what about Dale's secret that he gave up the rebels back in 03?
Okay, I agree. All the setups are just way too obvious. That one's been dangling since the start of the season. Plus, we've got Avery who's gonna freak out now her sergeant's dead because I guess it's in her genes. And we've got Haskell's conflict, which smacks of incompetence from his superiors. And Lilith, who will obviously create a fitting film to honor her friend. There's no real surprise there.
Well, neither Boyd nor Polivanov died on their bombing mission, so that was a surprise.
True, I'll grant you that. And to be honest, despite all these lingering issues and blatant foreshadowing, this episode had nonetheless an interesting build-up. We're obviously gearing up to an explosive finale.
More explosive than blowing up that landing pad?
Well, this may just be the start, Gigi. The Marines aren't going to be too pleased they just lost their prize.
But Aren't Haskell, Avery, and that other Marine now stuck on the asteroid? It should mean that, right? The landing pad's destroyed, so no one should be able to get off or on the base. Otherwise, it would mean that the entire exercise would have been for nothing.
We won't know any of that until the next episode. A lot of stuff is left hanging.
So, really, it was a story which only worked if you don't think about it too much.
Pretty much.
Which is always our downfall.
You said it, Doc. Well, that's pretty much all we have to say for this one. Let us know what you think in the comments, and I'll give you the response you deserve.
We start with the news broadcast of Kelly dedicating her landing to her dad and all of humanity, saying the words that were on the plaque We start with the news